It's very powerful. I think you feel a truer relationship to nature and so on here.
It's about people having an opportunity to just spend time, but in a way that probably they don't expect when they arrive. And it's about that surprise of actually it's not just a lead mine.
I love working here. I think it's a very atmospheric place to be. It's right out in the sticks. This valley was used by the Romans as a lime kiln because we're sitting atop the Great Limestone. So there is 2,000 years of mining heritage on this site because the Romans mined for lead and silver here. The Saxons had a massive lime kiln here. The Romans had lime kilns. It's got eons of history. And then having been walking around the site and especially doing a lot of cleaning and restoration in here, I found pieces of work that were originals from that mine that were forged when this mine was operating from 1853 onwards. The site is steeped in heritage and it's lovely to work here.
The miners came from all around here. They could even travel up to 20 miles away to come and work here. They would live in the mine shop through the week of the building over there, and they would stay here all week from a Monday to a Friday.
There's a very strong sense of community here, I'd say, and there always has been, and that's just a simple fact of life. You can't survive on your own, and you certainly couldn't in the past. But I often like to say when visitors are here that you know, the idea of dog eat dog or that kind of thing and is really a luxury. You can't afford to be selfish and isolated here. You have to pull together.
Certainly there is that attitude of, you know, you just make the most of what you're dealt with, whatever hardships come by you, you get through. And yeah, and I suppose I've very much been brought up with that, and you're part of your community and the community look out for each other.
It's an incredible asset in many different ways, for the heritage, the landscape, the wildlife, and just as a place where people can come to discover something, whether it's family heritage, whether it's just a little piece of history, or whether it's just to spend time outdoors in somewhere that's really safe and secure but interesting and has very different parts to it. You know, you've got the woodland, the forest, you've got the mining heritage, you've got the walks. It's a very diverse place.
So yeah, I'm Steve Messam, and I'm an artist, and I think that's that's a good, fair enough kind of description of what I do. I make stuff, so I generally make large things in landscapes. Most of the stuff is textile. It's difficult to describe what I do because it's so many things.
My name is Stuart Langley and I'm an artist predominantly working with light and colour. I think light's got a really primal attraction, and it's quite quite a transient material, if you can think of it as a material, so there's opportunity to play with it in so many different ways, and not only can you work with it during the day but also obviously at night. It kind of takes on a whole different range of opportunities to create, really.
Because the work that I do it becomes part of the landscape, so I'm not making an object and dropping it in. So my work is actually transforming that wider landscape. And so the landscape is the art. So you have to work with good materials. So you've got to have a good landscape to work in. That doesn't necessarily mean a classically attractive, in kind of normal ideas of aesthetics in terms of how a beautiful landscape. But it has to have attributes that I find interesting, and so it has to be an interesting visually, but also interesting in terms of its layers of narrative.
County Durham is known as a mining area, but predominantly the coal mining. Very few people recognise the lead mining history that we have until you come up into the Dales. And I think it's a very important thing that we do need to celebrate, and that we do need to remember, because it did play a huge part, particularly in the more rural areas of the county, and it shaped the landscape.
It seems quite a magical place. It really, really does, because it's got so many different elements. There's the open kind of vast landscape. You've got these relics of industry that are kind of carved into the landscape. Round the corner you've got a hush that's beautifully lined with moss and stone and trees. I'll certainly try my best to inspire other people to feel a bit of the magic that I feel from the place.
All landscapes are made of layers, like geological layers, but they're also made of geological layers of narrative. So they're constructed from the people that have worked there, as well as the geology. So you've got the history, you've got the farming, you've got the land use. The land has been changed through hundreds of years of people using that landscape for lots of different reasons. And all that stuff is all part of the story of the landscape.
It's an amazing place, and what I hope to be able to do with this commission is get people excited about the magic these people were digging for. Because if you look at the kind of minerals and all the materials that they were removing from the landscape as kind of treasure, then I'm hoping to be able to visualise that for people and create something quite magical, and hopefully make people think about what's beneath the feet a little bit more in general, not just when thinking about Killhope and its legacy as a mine.
I certainly feel a great empathy with the miners, but the place also is so full of it. You can't help thinking about it. I've often imagined to myself that I know what sort of people were here and what they were doing. And yes, it's very powerful, the sense of them in this place, I think. Yeah.
Because the mine is no longer functioning, and I'm not producing things that are being used by miners, I wouldn't go so far as to say that I'm a continuation of the heritage. But I feel more like a spiritual successor, because at the very least, people that come to see me doing things Sure, I'm not making chain by the meter, because sometimes that can be quite boring to watch, you know? I'm making different projects and things like that, but they can still see the craft done in the same way, in the same place, with the same techniques that were being used several hundred years back, several thousand years back, if you go way back to when the Romans were here. As we become more isolated as a society, I think it is critical to try and maintain this community sense through heritage craft and through celebration of heritage arts.
To think, when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a princess married to a handsome prince. But with 5 kids and hands like a farm track in winter, my chances seem limited. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I look at my man and think...
I'm born and bred in County Durham in the area, so I've visited the place just as a member of the public, just, you know, I kind of know the area. But really just a dear friend of mine, David Napthine, writer, friend and colleague, he wrote it and wanted me to play the part, and Maria, who manages the site as well, asked if I would play the part, and obviously I'd be delighted to, so hence here I am. It's about making the most of what you have and loving what you have, and also the character and a lot of other people don't have necessarily huge ambitions of wanting more than what they have, because what they have is enough. And it's about finding the joy in the landscape, in the countryside.
Living hereabouts, you have your family and your neighbours as your only guarantee of getting by with some happiness. You might hate the very ground your family and neighbours walk on, but you make the best of it. I reckon I've repaired as many friendships as I've donned stockings.
The essence of that character is her love of her life and her love of the landscape and the love of her community and her strength and resilience. And if you create a character like that, that character brings joy and a strong message, I think, to people who came and watched it. So to me, that was what it was about.
The creativity comes right back to the miners creating the spar boxes. You know, they did that in their spare time with the things that they brought out of the mine that weren't usable or saleable. But they created these incredible collections of spar boxes, and they used to take those on tour to the agricultural shows. But not only that, you've got as well the craft heritage. So you've got things like the willow weaving, the felt making, lots and lots of different things that can be related to the people who lived and worked here. There's so many different things that are very, very creative, but in a practical sense as well. But then that led on to further creativity. Working with the community on the arts projects that we do, so we work with a lot of the local schools, we work with a lot of the local community groups in the community centres, and we engage them in creativity that relates or reflects on Killhope or on Weardale with a view to bringing something to Killhope which everybody can access. And I think it's very much investing in the community, investing in their own creativity, but giving them ownership of something that celebrates their own heritage, celebrates where their roots might be.
it's really important to try and stay in touch with these heritage crafts and these historical sites, because historical sites are points where people gather and people congregate, places where stories can be told. And crafts are brilliant, both from the aspect of producing things and learning, but also from the social side. It brings people together.
Trying to clean while Mr. Stevens is in the office writing the ledgers, and he has to be accurate or there's questions asked, and he has to chat to
The piece certainly tells you so much about the hardships, but it also tells you about the joy. Resilience is a wonderful trait and quality to be around, and you can learn a lot. So yeah, it's certainly a celebration, and she loves life.
It's a great quote from Francis Bacon, who said that the purpose of art was to deepen the mystery. Which has always stuck with me. So you want to do stuff that people genuinely don't know, and actually the more they think about it, the less they know. which is what art should be. It's about contemplating, and it's about challenging and doing things that other things in the world don't do. Wherever they are, whether they're there for like an hour or whether they're there for a month or a year or whatever, but it's still, they're not permanent, but the permanent record of it is either in the memory of the people that come, but also inevitably nowadays everybody takes pictures of everything, so everything is composed secret, everything is composed as a photograph. So I look at how people navigate through a place to see where they approach it from and set up those sight lines so I know where people are going to take pictures from. The piece at the end of the trestle, it's really exposed. And I thought, well, if we're going to do something exposed, then let's do something exposed and really challenging as well in terms of what we can do. So making it something that's really tall in an exposed place, in an exposed site. I mean, if you see how much engineering goes into these things, it's like, that's the magic of it. Yeah, and that's the magic of the pieces, is that you've got to do something that in a way that people also don't see how it's done. Or it's not about being mysterious about how it's done, but you've got to do it in a way that it doesn't distract people from just appreciating the piece, so they don't get distracted by what you're doing to make it exist. It's a building in the woods, which I like, which I'd seen for a while, and when I first looked at it, I thought it's a difficult thing to do, and so I kind of passed it by. But it's also in a part of the site that people don't generally go to. So many people just sit to the middle bit, So I wanted to do something that was, even to kind of a regular visitor, they would go, hang on, where's that? Which is part of that, getting people to kind of look again and explore it further. I like the idea that it's a wonder that you come across. You come through the woods and you glimpse it, and then you see it and it's like, wow. Which is kind of what the building does in a way, and I just want to step it up a bit so that even when it's gone, you still have this sense of this lost building in the woods.
I think people like the isolation. Some people do like being a long way away from everything else.
Durham as a county and North Pennines as a whole, they're covered with the relics and the remnants of the heavy mining that was done here. And Killhope is doing its best to keep this little bit of northeast heritage alive and interactive for people.
If they're people that are new to the area, it gives them a feeling of being involved and being part of the community and being part of what we have here. And I think art and creativity allow people to express themselves in their own way, but the opportunity to work with artists who are internationally renowned like Steve and Stu but are from our region is really, really important.